Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be taking a look at this album here. So this review was requested by a user, Ewan Ellis, so thank you very much for requesting this review. I'm going to be looking at the Tears for Fears album, Songs from the Big Chair. So I'll just be doing the usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this was the band's second album, released on the 25th of February in 1985. It was a long time coming after their debut, which was released like in like 1983, and that album had sold like pretty well. However, it wasn't widely loved by critics at the time. So they therefore felt like they had something to prove with this album. The band lineup expanded as well, with Ian Stanley and Manny Elias, I think his name is, becoming full-time members of the band, on keyboard and drums respectively. Production duties on this album were handled by Chris Hughes, who had produced the debut album, The Hurting. Now musically, the the inspirations for this album were mostly contemporary music, bands such as Talking Heads, Peter Gabriel and Brian Eno. All influence the music, and I've also read as well that Kurt Smith here was apparently a big fan of one of my favorites from this era, The Blue Nile, and you can kind of hear that in parts of this album, in terms of it's slightly lengthier sort of song forms. The title of the album comes from a 1976 film called Sybil, where the main character, who is a schizophrenic and only feels safe in their analyst's big chair. They recorded a song called Big Chair for the B-side to the single Shout, which didn't make it onto the album. This B-side featured sampled audio from the film, so when they were coming up with an album title, they thought Songs from the Big Chair was a good one to go for. It was also promoted with a feature-length documentary about the making of the album called Scenes from the Big Chair. This long-form film promotion hadn't really been done before, but it certainly shows this album was definitely quite a big deal at the time. And commercially, it was a huge success, reaching number 2 in the UK and number 1 in the US and Canada. So I wish I'd show you my vinyl copy of it here. This is just a pretty basic version of it. I don't think there's anything too special about this one here. So there's the cover. It's still got the the hype sticker on the front there. Back's quite a basic design, I have to say, there, just with the song titles and Tears for Fears logo. The inner bag looks like this, so again you just get the songs and the credits. So arty photographs on this side, off the band members, and then the record is on Mercury Records there. So yeah, that is the vinyl record looked at. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album songs. So I'll score each track out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So the album kicks off with the song Shout, which was one of their biggest and most acclaimed hits. However, for me, I've never been a huge fan of this song. I just think the chorus is quite sort of basic. I think is quite generic lyrics. The verses though quite good. And I would say with this track, I quite like how the music becomes more intense throughout the song. Although it is quite a repetitive song, certainly musically and production wise, the song builds up and becomes quite intense. Roland said that the chorus was quite therapeutic to write, the shout, let it all out, these are the things that I can do without. It was originally just him repeating this mantra style lyric, and it was a huge commercial success, this song, reaching number 4 in the UK and topping the American charts, as well as reaching the top 5 in numerous other countries. However, for me, it's just not a song which I ever really go back to much. It's one which I listen to say on a Tears for Fears greatest hits compilation, or this album, but it's certainly, for me anyway, not a song which I ever want to go to in isolation. Next up up is called The Working Hour, which is a pretty good song here. Like, again, it sort of begins with some sort of like saxophone like flourishes, I call it. Like, it's a bit of a sort of like a slow burning like introduction like this one. It takes a little while to get going, but then as it does, it becomes a pretty decent mid-tempo track, like kind of like about like working like day in day out, but like also it's kind of like a hidden dig like at like the music industry, like with lyrics such as like "we are paid by those who learn by our mistakes." I quite like the instrumental break off it, like sort of like the guitar sort of like mini solo like in it, like, and plus I think Roland's vocal like is particularly good like on this song as well. So I would give The Working Hour a 8 out of 10 for that one. Okay, and then the next track up is definitely the best song on the album for me, is Everybody Wants to Rule the World, which is an easy 10 out of 10, this song here. It's an absolutely undisputed classic, and like, yeah, it's probably for me the signature Tears for Fears song. It's a great defiant lyric like on the song about wanting to control your life and sort of standing up like in the face like of corruption. I really like the multiple bridges like in like the song as well, like it kind of like there's all these sort of like different like sort of like different takes like on like the verse like melody like throughout like the track, like, which I do like really like. Plus the production like is great as well. Like I love like the sort of like the keyboards like and like guitar sounds like on it. Like, yeah, like even though it is sort of like a very sort of like stereotypical 80s sound, it's kind of like a sound that has sort of like come back. It still for me like has a quite a fresh vibe to it, like this song, I think. Now this was in the UK at least the third single issued from the album. Like for me, like it would have been like sort of like the go-to like single. Like as it was like it was the third single and it reached number 2 in the UK, but I did top the charts like in many other countries, including America, New Zealand, and Canada. So yeah, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, absolute classic song there. One of the best tracks of the whole 1980s for me. Easy 10 out of 10. After that though, we get a song which I've never been a massive fan of. It's Mother's Talk. And this one I think is quite a overproduced song, like this one here. Like Roland said that it's about sort of like nuclear weapons, like the lyrics like on there. I don't really hear that too much like in like the song. For me, it's just quite an overproduced song. Like as I said, it sort of shows like a more kind of dancey vibe like to them, like, but it's very sort of like bombastic like side. This was the first single released from the album, like some 6 months before the album came out in August of 1984. And yeah, this is quite a different sound like to their debut, like, and like it fared quite disappointingly like on like the charts, like only peaking at number 14 like in the UK. And like, yeah, for me it's just never been like a huge song like which like I ever like really feel like the urge like to listen to. So yeah, Mother's Talk would get a 6 out of 10 there. Next up is called I Believe, which I would give a 6 out of 10 to also. This is a slower ballad, this one here. Again, it's not really, I think this is just a bit of like a sleepy track, really. I've read that they were going to give this song originally to Robert Wyatt, and I think it would suit him rather well. Very sort of like similar vibe like to like the Elvis Costello song Shipbuilding, like which like Wyatt like had a hit with like a few years before. It's very sort of like, it's kind of piano, sort of like loungy, sort of like jazz style, this one here. Quite a, yeah, like intense mood to it, but for me, again, it's just not a song which really grabs me too much. And like it was like another single from the album, and like didn't perform too great, this one, like reached number 23, which is still alright, like compared to like some bands like who like rarely scraped like the top 30. For me though, like just not a like real sort of like standout track there. Thankfully though, the record picks up with the next track, which is called Broken, which picks up the pace. It's a bit more sort of like beefiness like in this one, like in terms of like the guitar sound. The problem like with this track though is it does take a little while like to reach like the lyrics, like, but like it is very good like once we get there. Again, it's just a bit short like compared to many of like the other album songs, like some of which like stretch out to like 5-6 minutes. This one, like I think it's only about like 3 minutes long like in total. So yeah, it is like quite a short song this, but certainly I think serves a purpose like as being like a kind of like introduction like into the next track. Which for me is my second favourite on the album, and it's Head Over Heels, which is another classic song, another track which I would give the full 10 out of 10 to. I just think the production works a lot better on this song, like compared to something like Mother's Talk, like, which is quite sort of like bombastic, like, and like in your face. This one's a bit more dreamy, like sort of like style to it, which I really like. I love the kind of like the really melodic chorus, like in this one. Like it's just such a catchy song, this, like, but like it's not like annoying, like in like anywhere. Like, it's just a beautiful melody that just gets like stuck in your head. And like again, like another point, like on like the production, like there's a brief like sort of like filtered like sort of like drum solo like sort of thing in it, like so like just a brief thing, but I think like again it just sounds so good. This was yet another single as well, and this reached number 12 in the UK. I certainly think it should have done a lot better than that, and like reached like a very strong number 3 like in America. So yeah, Head Over Heels, really good track there. That's then followed up by a live reprise of Broken, which works like in the context of the album. It's just slightly confusing like why it's on the album. Like I really don't like it, like when like you get like sort of like on like a studio album, suddenly like a live recording like appears like out of nowhere, like happens on say like Bridge Over Troubled Water, like, or something like that, you know, like they kind of just, for me, like don't really serve much of a purpose like on the album. And like yeah, like it's the same kind of case with this, really. Like it goes into like a live version like of Broken, and like yeah, you just don't really need that on the album for me. But then the record closes with the song, yeah, Listen, which I would give a 5 out of 10 to. This is a bit of a sleepy song, this. It's quite messy as well. There's just not much thought has been put into this song, like, if I'm being honest with you. It's really kind of like an ambient track. Like, this is probably like one which was influenced very heavily by like Brian Eno. It just, for me, just rounds off the album like in a really sort of like a poor fashion. Like I think like, it was mostly recorded like by a keyboardist, Ian Stanley, kind of just like mucking about like in like the studio, and it just goes on for far too long. Like wouldn't mind if like this was maybe about say 2 or 3 minutes. As it is, it's 7 minutes, this track, and like yeah, it's just quite a sleepy, disappointing end like to like this album. So yeah, Listen, I would give a 5 out of 10 to. Okay, so overall, this album would score 75%. So I would say this album has actually grown on me a little bit, like, since I first heard it. Because I must say, like, when I first heard it, like, I wasn't a fan of it, to be frankly honest with you. Aside from, like, the obvious ones, like, Everybody Wants to Rule the World and Head Over Heels. But it has grown on me, like, a little bit. But still, 75% is, like, not a great score, like, for, well, like, an album considered to be one of, like, the best-loved albums of the 80s. For me personally, I just feel much more of a kind of personal connection like to the album Hurting. It kind of, for me, like the emotions expressed on that one seem like a bit more genuine. It seems a bit more raw. Like, plus I just think like the melodies like on that album like are like a lot more memorable. Like the production like is like more like sort of like interesting, and like too often like on this album they fall into sort of like bombast like in production, like rather than strong quality songs. This is a fact like supported like by like a quote from like Roland, like in like the scenes from the Big Chair film, like where like he says that like they like basically like around this time like had a brand new like home studio, like so they spent like all day sort of like playing about like with like the new tricks they had, like so like synthesizers and stuff, like trying to make that weird sound, like rather than writing songs. He says that they would fit their songs around the production tracks, which is yeah, maybe like why parts of this album like just really like don't stick with me. But when they get it right on here, like it is amazing. Like yeah, like again, like I go back to like Everybody like wants to rule the world and like Head Over Heels, both amazing songs. It's just a shame for me that like a lot of the other stuff like on this album like just isn't quite as engaging as those. But yeah, I will be very interested to know what you think of this album down below in the comments, because I'm sure this review like probably will divide opinion. Like, but yeah, like that's just like my like 2 cents on songs from the Big Chair. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.